Hi, it's Jess Stenson, nee Trengove, and I'm back on the Physical Performance Show, sharing my experiences with pregnancy, childbirth, and returning to training.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Earshot's Bluetooth magnetic headphones. These headphones are only for cyclists and runners who charge. And of course, the show is brought to you by the Physical Performance Show's very own Learnings membership and our Pogo Physio Telehealth consults. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. And of course, we do this across a range of different episodes, interest editions, catch episodes, coaches' corners, featured performers, and expert editions. And off the back of last week's featured performer episode featuring Australian 5 times 3,000 metre steeplechase champion, dual Olympian, and 3 times Commonwealth Games representative Vic Mitchell, we keep the return to running postpartum theme going, and we'll share with you a conversation we recently recorded with now repeat guest of the show, Jessica Stenson, nee Trengove. Now, Jess last appeared on the Physical Performance Show way back on episode 34 in December of 2016. And a lot has changed in Jess's world since that last appearance. We caught up with Jess back on episode 34 just after the Rio Olympic Games. And from there, Jess went on to run so strongly in the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast in 2018, securing the bronze medal, before then going on to Toronto, where Jess recorded her marathon PB, 2:25:59. Now, fast forward a year after that marathon PB, and Jess and her husband, Dylan Stenson, gave birth to their beautiful little boy, Billy, in November 2019. And just as any athlete returning to sport postpartum encounters challenges, so did Jess. Now, Jess herself is a physical therapist at Physio Smart in South Australia. So today you'll enjoy Jess's learnings from her experience postpartum in getting back in shape, back to her best, and marathon ready. So get set for some fantastic learnings with Jess Stenson, dual Australian Olympian, dual Commonwealth Games Marathon Medalist, on this featured performer episode. Jessica Stenson, nee Trengove, welcome back to the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Gosh, it was the 2nd of December 2016. You were episode 34, and now you will be episode 270. So let's catch up on the last 240-something weeks.
Yeah, I still remember that episode recording really well, actually. I remember just being stumped on the question about who I would invite to a dinner. Any 2 people in the world stands out in my mind.
Can you remember the answers? I can't remember your answers, but can you remember?
I've got a feeling Roger Federer was in there.
That's right. And Dylan, husband.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you could say in advance you're expecting little Billy. But in all seriousness, 240 weeks, my gosh, as I was reviewing and just sort of gathering things that have changed in your life, it's wow. I mean, Com Games, that awesome bronze medal that you chased down, a PB 2:25 in the marathon. I think it was at Gold Coast only 10 weeks after, wasn't it? The Gold Coast Marathon?
I ran a PB at the time of 2:26:31, but then went on to run my current PB in the Toronto Waterfront Marathon in October of 2018, which was actually my most recent marathon, which is crazy. It's nearly, 2.5 years ago now.
So that was the 2:25:59.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, absolutely stellar, outstanding. Throw into the mix that you became a mum, November 2019, is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. It's a little baby Billy.
Yeah.
and what haven't you done in that time? It's been a big couple of years.
Yeah, it has been. And I am so grateful for, I guess, the way it has all panned out. As a female athlete, choosing when is a good time to start a family, and that process is challenging because you're sort of trying to work out what your running goals are and what your family goals are. And I really just went with my heart, and I'm so happy with how it has all panned out so far.
Gosh, you bring up a big point there, though, Jess, about, male athletes, apart from perhaps becoming fathers themselves, it doesn't impact on them really physically. And as you say, for a woman, a female athlete, professional athlete, choosing the timing, like you said, you went with your heart, but is anything you'd add to that to people that are maybe not even necessarily professional sports people, but they're just a bit mindful of the right timing? I mean, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, look, for me, it was this sense that I wasn't actually going to get the most out of myself as an athlete until I'd started that phase of my life. It was really just niggling me that I had this dream of starting a family, and I knew that the longer I was leaving it, I guess the more challenging it could become. And I just was becoming stressed by that thought. And so after my marathon in Toronto in 2018, although I ran a personal best and I finished that race thinking I've got more to give, I thought that was actually quite a nice way to go into the process of motherhood or trying to become a mum, because I thought that's going to be a great motivator to ease back into training and hopefully, pursue my goals down the track still. It would have been hard to wait until I thought I'd reached my potential in running. And I don't think I would have quite had the motivation to get back into it. But by making this decision earlier in my career, I feel like it will hopefully prolong my running career, and I can enjoy running more marathons with, Billy cheering on the sidelines. And yeah, it was something that Dylan and my husband and I spoke about a lot, though. Yeah,
and I guess it's always individual, personal, contextualised to so many factors in life. And, there's never a better time to welcome a little one into the world than when it happens, right? I mean, he arrived on the scene and going through the pregnancy, we might explore this just chronologically. You yourself, you're a practicing physiotherapist there in South Australia, Physio Smart. So you've got knowledge around the physiology of pregnancy, but can you walk us through, from inception to, the steps that you went through to delivery with this sport?
Sure. Well, I think I was well aware that, every pregnancy and every birth experience is very different, and it's a very individual thing. And there was every chance that I may not be able to get back into running or running, at my best, but that was a risk I was willing to take, and I wanted to do what I could to improve my chances of it going smoothly. So, when I became pregnant, I signed up for a physio course, maternity health and women's health and maternity physiotherapy by Taryn Hallam. So I attended that course when I was about 20 weeks pregnant. And it was really insightful, but also quite daunting, because whilst I learnt about the benefits of exercise and, just the ins and outs of, what the female body goes through during pregnancy and childbirth, I also learnt the complications that can occur and, at their worst. So So that I found myself kind of wriggling awkwardly in my chair at times. But I really applied that knowledge. And what I did take from it is that there are many benefits to being active throughout pregnancy, and that's in reducing your risk of preeclampsia, and there can be some benefits to the fetus. And I think, traditionally it was advised that women, be really conservative. And I think there's still that fear factor around the place that at times, unfortunately, stops women from being active because they're worried about, what damage, may incur. So I became really passionate about trying to get involved in that space and helping to empower women to be active as well during pregnancy. But I, at 14 weeks, had some anterior pelvic pain, so 14 weeks into my pregnancy, which stopped me from running at that point. So I'd been jogging and doing the odd little sort of tempo run still, but at 14 weeks I got a new gym membership and started cross-training. So I became very familiar with water running and the elliptical trainer and the stationary bike, and just had to start being creative with my sessions to stay engaged. And that's when I started listening to podcasts a lot more, and really broadened my, playlist of podcasts and started, as I said, just coming up with some creative sessions to keep it fun. By 18 weeks, my pelvic pain had settled, but I didn't get into a lot of running from that point onwards. I think I went for a few runs per week, even on the Gold Coast that year. So I was about 21 weeks pregnant when I was there, and I think that's when I caught up with you and Elsie and I. Eloise Wellings, a guest of the show, she was pregnant and at a similar stage to me. We ran the 10K just casually for fun together, and from that point onwards I really started to back off my running because it was just becoming a bit uncomfortable. I was having to race off to the toilet frequently, and runs were just becoming it wasn't running as I knew it. So I really focused on cross training from 30 weeks onwards. And my little baby Billy flipped into breech at 27 weeks into my pregnancy, and at that point the obstetrician suggested a C-section may be the way to go if he didn't turn, and he stayed in that position from that point onwards. So I found it difficult hearing that I may need to have an elective cesarean initially, but once I got my head around that sort of thought it through, I was quite comfortable with that birthing plan. And so, he was born at about 38 and a half weeks via C-section. And, I can go into the postpartum side of things if you'd like, or did you want to chat a little bit more about the pregnancy?
No, well, I mean, there's some nice milestones along the along the pregnancy journey there, Jess. The course, as you said, that you attended with Taryn Hallam, you said it was insightful and daunting. I imagine that, you'd still be better off knowing the potential complications than not knowing. I guess there's knowledge is power. Even though they made you, as you say, squirm in your seat. But I'm just curious, you said that your obstetrician suggested or recommended the C-section delivery rather than a natural delivery when little Billy flipped into the breech position. Yeah. And you said you found that difficult to accept at first. What was that difficulty based on?
I just had this idea in my mind of just experiencing, that natural birth process. And I'd started, reading up on strategies to work through it. And I was sort of likening it to the marathon in some ways and thinking you could use, similar strategies to work through the really tough times. It was just, I guess I was intrigued to experience that, and I have no doubt it would be incredibly painful, but I saw it as a challenge that I was keen to take on. So I I guess there are a lot of unknowns that come with that, though. The C-section, I could sort of visualise, exactly what the process would look like. And to be honest, it was just unbelievable. We had so much excitement the night before we were booked in, and I went in, and the healthcare team were amazing, and Billy was pulled out feet first, and the moment I laid eyes on him, I just burst into tears. It was just amazing, and it's the greatest moment ever. When I got to meet the little one that had been kicking around inside, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I know that the recovery is different after a C-section. In fact, it was probably even a little bit more painful afterwards than I'd anticipated. I just remember there was the incision site on one side of it. It just really stung and pinched for probably about 4 to 6 weeks. Whenever I laughed, coughed, sneezed, anything that increased my intra-abdominal pressure really hurt. So I can still remember my dad actually just making a joke in the week after I gave birth, and I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't laugh. I didn't know what to do. I just, basically had to tell people they couldn't be too funny because I couldn't handle laughing.
Well, your dad jokes had gone up. Your father's jokes had gone to a new level because he was a grandfather, right? So it was just like double the punch. So
that's it.
But that's, I think that's probably reassuring for people that, particularly women, obviously, that maybe have, maybe they're in the stage of navigating that at the moment, or considering that with their pregnancy. So, and then Jess, I did smile. One of the pictures you posted on your Instagram gallery ahead of delivery of Billy, it was quite late in your pregnancy. You had a very evident baby bump, and you were doing a bit of self kinesio taping on your tummy to. Now I was curious. Was it effective, or? And we'll post this up in the show notes. It's a great little pic. But what were you trying to achieve there? Just trying to take a bit of pressure off, I guess. Yeah,
that was effective. I'm just trying to remember what pain I had at the time, because that was later in my pregnancy, and it was something that was uncomfortable even when I was on the elliptical, and that was just a bit of a sling lift that relieved whatever discomfort I was having at the time. One of the interestingly really irritating things I found was my belly button, which popped out quite early. The friction of that against my singlet, because it was sort of winter and sometimes, it would be wet or I'd get sweaty. It was like a really nasty chafing on my belly button. So I had to, regularly tape up my belly button too to prevent chafing.
Well, that's there you go. That's probably helping a lot of people, Jess. So there's a top tip: tape up your belly button if needed. New trend as well. And then Jess, obviously Billy's on the scene. What has your return to, participation? I guess then sport and to be performance. Like, what's that journey look like? And obviously, you're navigating that along breastfeeding as well.
So another, I guess, thing to note there is everyone's experience is so different. The pregnancy process, the childbirthing process, and then the return to sport. So I started seeing a women's health physio 14 weeks into my pregnancy when I had that anterior pelvic pain, and worked closely with her just to work out what I could be doing to reduce my risk of complications. And so then I checked in with her again 4 weeks after giving birth. And I remember at that point walking. I've actually got my little timeline up here that I used. I'd been walking basically since day 5, which is when I returned from the hospital, and that was really not walking far, and I was just being guided by my symptoms there. So week 4 I've got here. Sorry. So yeah, the week after giving birth, I was just going for gentle walks, and that kind of continued through until 4 weeks after giving birth. In December, I was starting to introduce, so this was a month after giving birth, some really light abdominal exercises and leg work. And then by sort of week 6, I was starting to, use the elliptical trainer a little bit more. So we ended up getting an elliptical trainer for home, which was for my return to running, but ended up being so helpful during the COVID lockdown as well.
Oh, totally.
And yeah, from there, I just gradually introduced some jogging as I felt I was able to. And by late January, so this is, I guess, 3 months afterwards, I started to do some little mini sessions, and in those sessions I really just avoided comparing to my running pre-pregnancy. It was kind of nice in a way. There was no pressure. It was just a blank canvas, and I was just setting a new benchmark for myself that I hoped to improve on. And I can still remember doing some short reps, and I was a long way off where I had been, when I fell pregnant. So it was quite cool just to have this new sense of, let's just start from here and see where I can go with it. And fortunately, it was a pretty smooth progression from that point onwards. So by late February, which was 4 months post, I signed up for a little 3K race here in Adelaide at the track. And by late March, I was actually getting into sort of some marathon style training that again looked very different to my marathon training before giving birth. I was doing a lot of work on the elliptical trainer, and then just my key sort of long runs and sessions on land.
Yeah. And Jess, that's terrific. Thank you for sharing and being so detailed. I think you should publish that timeline some stage, Jess. The blank canvas comment stuck out in that you found it nice that it was a blank canvas and you were just hopeful to improve on wherever you started. But were there elements of still, you said you tried to avoid comparing yourself, but was there a little bit of doubt and fear that, oh gosh, I'm just never going to be the same runner again? Is that the thought process that occurs, or you were you're a very optimistic person, you didn't even let yourself go there?
I think I did remain optimistic because I've just seen so many women get back to, their best after giving birth. So I thought, why, if I'm sort of sensible and smart in my approach, can't I, be the same? So I think having, Eloise Wellings and Karen McCann, Sonia O'Sullivan, Lisa Waitman. There are so many female role models out there who have shown that you can incorporate, starting a family into your running career, and if anything, it can make you stronger, both physically and mentally. And I think particularly the mental side, suddenly you do have a renewed sort of perspective. And I was actually speaking with a training partner earlier today about self-imposed pressure, and just saying that when you become a parent, you reflect less on the session you've just done because you automatically have to go into that kind of mode of, what next, and thinking about your family. So there's less of sort of getting hung up on the intricacies of sessions and what may not have gone well, or what went well. You just basically living in the moment and thinking about the next thing that you have to do. And it's sort of more of that process mode, and some of the,
less reflective
reflections that can sometimes just be time consuming and draining.
Yeah. Gosh. And that's a very practical change, isn't it? With adding a family member. You really,
yeah. And in saying that, there are some incredible sort of emotional changes that happen too, and that idea of being able to share race day with your little one, and give them a cuddle at the end, and that sort of they're seeing you working towards goals and doing something that brings you a lot of happiness and is good for your health. So, yeah, there is an emotional side that comes with being a parent as well, but certainly a lot of the practicalities.
Absolutely. And I guess before we talk about recovery and navigating, injury, Jess, just on the return to running, just wanted us to pull apart this for a moment more, if I may. That's I presume you started with some light jog walks, and then, as you said, you added some workouts in. Anything you'd share to people listening in that are wondering how they do sort of progress along that continuum back to full workouts?
Yeah, well, I guess what was quite confronting for me was the abdominal impact of having the Csection. I felt like I'd just completely lost my I thought of myself as a book that's just lost its spine. The pages have just fallen out. Like I am so used to having this structure, and something that I'd sort of taken for granted, just being able to sit up straight and to be able to roll over in bed, and suddenly there was just nothing there. So I would be feeding, nursing Billy, and I was just slumped in the chair. I couldn't actually sit up straight because I didn't have that abdominal control. So in the first 4 weeks, I was really just working on feeling like I could hold my body upright well again, and it did come back quite quickly. Sort of I went from, wearing some sort of compression or support regularly to give myself a sense of having something there, to then being able to hold myself up. And then, my walking and whatnot, I think really helped with that as well. I was limited in what I could do from a strength and conditioning perspective around that abdominal area, because a lot of the work I did was causing doming. I still had that separation. I just had to really put my hand on my abdominals and feel every time I did any exercise, had to make sure that it was actually bringing my abdominals back towards each other and reducing that separation rather than enhancing it and causing doming. So that's some advice I would give to any woman coming back from childbirth, is to just get to know your body really well, feel and watch what's happening, because some exercises work for some and not for others. And at the end of the day, you just need to be doing whatever is, reducing that or bringing your abdominals towards each other. And I think when I started back running, I did feel different. And even to this day, I look a bit different. My coach has told me I run with a bit more of a forward lean now. And I think just the changes that your body goes through. I mean, if you're, say, breastfeeding, you've got a different structure and weight is distributed differently to what you're used to. And, my pelvis, I definitely needed to work on my strength and control there. Even my feet, I feel like I've gone up half a size, and I don't know whether that's the hormonal changes and a bit of laxity in my foot structure is just collapsed a little. But my previous shoes all feel a bit tight now, and that's nearly, or what am I, 19 months down the track. So yeah, there are a lot of changes, and I think you just have to acknowledge that that there will be, and you've got to do what you can within your control just to make sure that you're minimising your risk of injury and strengthening up where you can.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating about your shoe sizes, Jess. Yeah. I had not considered that, but, absolutely makes sense. Just as well, ASICS is in your corner there, Jess, and can deck you out with half a size bigger or a size bigger. You're listening to Jess Stenson, nee Trengove, on this Feature Performer episode where Jess shares with us her journey on returning to sport postpartum. Support for today's show comes from Earshot's Bluetooth magnetic headphones. If you are a runner or cyclist who charges and is sick of your headphones falling off, coming unlodged, or running out of charge, then look no further than Earshot's Bluetooth headphones. This disruptive technology is taking the endurance and action sports world by storm. Co-founder and CEO James Bell Booth simply became frustrated by the constant distraction of his headphones dislodging and falling out. Earshot's Bluetooth headphones utilise an innovative, first-of-its-kind, proprietary magnetic ear clip design to ensure that the earphones do not dislodge. And the team have very generously offered the Physical Performance Show's listeners 10% off the normal retail price of $169.75 by simply using the coupon code TPPS over at the checkout. Join many of the Physical Performance Show's listeners in getting a better set of headphones on your ears, so jump over and be sure to take advantage of Earshot's generous offer. Support for today's show also comes from our very own Learnings membership. It's real simple. If you'd like to support the production of the show, you can do so from just $5 per month. In return, we'll grant you complimentary access to all our back-catalogued live stream events, normally ticketed at $49 per person per event, including last year's very popular live streams with Dr. Shona Halson on all things recovery science and Dr. Stephen Seiler on all things polarized training. Now, in 2021, we are really excited to be putting together live streams with Rory Darkins, former featured guest of the show, on all things positive psychology in sport, and also very popular UK-based sports dietitian Rinny McGregor on fueling for endurance sport. Stay tuned for the dates to soon be released, but in the meantime, if you'd like to support the production of the show, jump over to Patreon, search for the Physical Performance Show, and there you can pledge your support. And of course, support for today's show comes from Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations, 45 minutes in length, designed to help endurance athletes struggling with bone, tendon, or joint-related concerns get back to their physical best. You can schedule your online 45-minute telehealth consultation with myself or any of the Pogo Physio team simply by jumping over to pogophysio.com.au/telehealth. And here's a snippet from recreationally competitive triathlete Sarah, hailing from Tasmania, Australia, who we were delighted to assist in helping Sarah get back to her physical best and across what we term here at Pogo Physio, her very own physio finish line. Here's Sarah on her experience with telehealth physiotherapy.
Hey, I'm Sarah. I'm a competitive age group triathlete from Australia, and telehealth 100% works. I did telehealth with Brad for chronic sesamoiditis, and I didn't need any hands-on treatment. I had exercise prescription and load management with my training, and this, along with Brad's expertise and genuine care, got me across my Pogo finish line.
For now, let's jump back with Jess Stenson, nee Trengove, on this Featured Performer episode, with Jess sharing on all things returning to sport postpartum. Last week's expert edition featuring US-based medical exercise specialist Celeste Goodson, she referenced the scientific known changes with movement patterns of pre and post pregnancy, and it would certainly make sense that 19 months post there may still be some differences with your running gait. Jess, returning to the gym, as you said, it's a continuum as well, and often there's a lot of fear around adding the heavier stuff back in. Anything you'd say, just heavier stuff, being the classic lifts, the deadlifts, the squats, fear of increasing intra-abdominal pressure and the negative potential effects on that. Celeste last week referenced that Laurie Fauna, former guest of the show's research, actually showed that heavy lifting was not problematic for anyone suffering from prolapse. But anything you'd add to people's journeys there with getting back into the heavier side of strength and conditioning?
I'd certainly check in with a women's health physio just to have a full assessment, and if anything, it's just good for your head to know what's happening and to hear from someone who's dealing with your situation specifically, and you can go into the gym more informed, and you can speak to your strength and conditioning coach or whoever's advising you with your program, and let them know exactly what your situation is. And for me, just keeping an eye on any doming from the separation. So in my abdominal region was a big one. And so, sometimes I'd just ask my strength and conditioning coach to just keep an eye out there. And if he could see any sort of bulge happening with particular exercises, we'd just remove that, or, try changing my breathing patterns and see whether that made any change. And it's just been going into everything with a very open mind. But in terms of the heavy lifting and whatnot, it really depends on your situation, and if you're able to do it with a good technique and with no adverse sort of responses, I think it's great to get back into that sort of work, because you can lose a bit of muscle bulk. I think there are benefits. I mean, walking around pregnant and carrying a lot more weight, I think you get quite strong calves. And then once you've given birth, you get really strong arms from carrying your baby around. But I think the hormonal changes as well can make building muscle a little bit more difficult at points. So doing whatever you can to rebuild the muscle and strength is great.
Yeah, wow. And Jess, navigating the injury side of things, one of the areas that intrigues me just as a treating practitioner is the fueling demands on the postpartum mum, just generally in keeping bubby, fed and well and happy, let alone the extra demands that then go on top of the mum with any return to sport or participation and beyond. What have you learned around the fueling side of things? I mean, it's an area I haven't explored the literature around, but it just fascinates me. How do you get enough on board to keep two people happy? No,
it's a really interesting one. I mean, my pregnancy experience was that I became a lot hungrier. So I was getting up in the middle of the night for a snack basically every night. And I know I could have just popped some dry biscuits next to my bed or whatever, but I like to sort of choose whatever I felt like at the time. So I'd head downstairs and go to the fridge and try not to disturb Dylan too much. But that became a habit, as I said, during pregnancy. And then after giving birth, that appetite didn't really drop. I found while I was breastfeeding, which was for the first 13 months, I still had a higher appetite, even though I wasn't at time, for a lot of that time in full training. It was like I was in marathon prep mode. It was, I was trying to meet my energy needs, but I also had to consider what I was putting into my body. You've got a little one that you're providing for as well. So just trying to get in a really nutritious diet. I don't have any particular style of diet that I follow. It's just sort of everything in moderation. Fish, meat, grains, fruit and veg and whatnot. And it's something, as a runner, I'm always thinking about what I can do to improve my ability to recover, adapt to training and keep my immune system strong. So I just applied that same mindset to, being a mum that's providing for a baby. But I couldn't believe how high my appetite was, and knowing as well that perhaps my bone density might have been a little bit lower, or, that my estrogen levels would have changed as well in pregnancy and then whilst breastfeeding. So I was really making sure I was keeping on top of my bone health and being careful with my reloading, because it is a period where you're a bit more vulnerable, I guess, to bone injuries. And funnily enough, when I stopped breastfeeding, I sort of thought, okay, I'm out of the the vulnerable phase now, and I can probably pick things up quite safely. And it was 4 months after stopping breastfeeding that I got a bone injury. So that's been a learning curve as well, acknowledging that your hormones swing, and that process of weaning and stopping breastfeeding brings about a lot of changes too. And you've suddenly got this toddler that's running around, and I think the energy that you're burning chasing after a little toddler still keeps you in that higher risk category, because you just can't rest and recover like you normally perhaps could.
Yeah, and as you say, the hormonal profiles shift in, and it was 4 months post stopping breastfeeding. You said, Jess, you picked up a bone stress injury, which those that follow along your journey on Instagram will have seen you running in the Alta G there with some return to running. But what point did you stop breastfeeding? How many months postpartum?
So that was 13 months, and that was I'm just trying to think of the race. It was the Launceston half marathon that I ran in December, sort of marked that period where I stopped breastfeeding. But again, that was quite a process. I thought it would just be a case of sort of, you're breastfeeding, you gradually reduce the number of feeds and then you stop. But it was, I had to learn a lot about how to do it safely, because your supply doesn't just stop. You've really got to kind of plan it out, and it was a learning experience.
In terms of in your head, you thought it might just be like day one, you start off breast milk. Is that right? But it didn't quite go,
I guess I thought my body would just stop producing milk quite quickly, but it really was a gradual process where your body's slowly adjusting to the feeds being less and your supply is still high, and you've got to put up with a fair bit of discomfort while you're still producing milk, but you don't have, your baby drinking it, and you're kind of at risk of, mastitis and some nasty things there, engorgement. So for runners, that can be quite hard when you've got a lot of discomfort there and you're trying to head out for a run. So.
Gosh, the tape that you used on your belly button during the pregnancy might come in handy again, hey?
Exactly.
Jess, and I'm not sure if you are or aren't, and understand if you're not, but are you at liberty to talk about the bone stress injury you've been recovering from recently?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually preparing for a marathon that was held in Sydney on Anzac Day. And for me, I'd been training for a marathon, as I said, at about the 7-month mark post having Billy. So in April of 2020, we were going to fly overseas as a family, and my hope was to post an Olympic qualifying time for Tokyo. And that race was cancelled. Sort of was madly looking around for marathon opportunities in Australia, but gradually each of the Australian marathons, were being cancelled as well. And then there was a point where the Olympics were still going ahead last year, but I didn't have a marathon race to try and target a qualifier in. And then the Olympics were postponed. And so that gave me another whole year to prepare for a marathon. And I was really happy with how training was going, and I probably had about 2 more weeks of heavy training before starting my taper for this Sydney marathon, and started getting some discomfort in my sort of lateral leg and then the quad region. And I knew at that point that this wasn't just a little niggle that I could work through. It was quite debilitating. So I started cross-training and had some, various investigations done. And a week into cross-training, had the final diagnosis that I did have a bone stress injury. And it was more of a traction bone stress injury from where a muscle inserts into the femoral shaft, and I guess was tugging. So it was a bit of a different one. But yeah, it was very uncomfortable. So I have to say this morning I went for my first little run with my team.
Team Tempo?
After 6 weeks off, so I'm buzzing.
Oh, great. And what was this morning's run, Jess?
So I just did their warm-up with them and some strides. So it doesn't sound like a very exciting run, but for me it was, incredible. It was just so nice to be out, chatting away with the team again and watching them training.
A big win, a big step. And,
yes.
And obviously Team Tempo powering along still under the guidance of Adam Diddick and former Coach's Corner episode of the show. And looking ahead, Jess, obviously the bone stress injury recalibrates your year ahead, but what's on the focus now? What's on the horizon now?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I was really hoping to, be able to race if I couldn't race in Sydney, on the Gold Coast, and I still hope to go up there to watch if I can't do any sort of run, because a lot of my Team Tempo teammates will be up there, and I always love going along to the Gold Coast Marathon. It's just a brilliant event, and it'll be a really special celebration this year after everything that's happened, and with the event having to go virtual last year. I'd really like to still run a marathon at some stage this year. It's something I've been working really hard towards, obviously, since November of 2019. I have been cross-training, as much as I can to maintain my fitness. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to build back into training fairly smoothly, but we'll see. So I'm just staying pretty open-minded at the moment and enjoying each run as it comes, and being open to the idea of racing soon, but also knowing that if my body's not ready to keep progressing, I'll just have to keep recalibrating and let my goal unfold.
Now, if you missed last week's episode, it was a featured performer episode with Australian athletics teammate of Jess's, Vic Mitchell. It was a very raw and candid conversation with Vic sharing around some real hardship that she's endured throughout her life that's really resonated with so many listeners. Here's a snippet of my conversation from last week with Vic Mitchell. When did you start? How many weeks postpartum?
Oh, well, I was, you know how I'm all about pushing the envelope, and if it doesn't hurt or if there's, no pain and minimum discomfort, then you can do whatever you can. I was actually being held back by my partner. I would have gone even sooner, but he was like, don't be silly. So I was doing elliptical, a couple of weeks after, and then I started running.
To enjoy the full episode, jump over to wherever it is that you enjoy your podcast from. Of course, you'll find the Physical Performance Show on all podcast platforms and also now on YouTube. For now, let's jump back with dual Olympian, dual Commonwealth Games Marathon Medalist, Jess Stenson, nee Trengove on this featured performer episode on all things returning to sport postpartum. Jess, you survived the physical performance round back on episode 34. However, in 2021, I was wondering if you would be happy to issue a physical challenge to listeners, perhaps around this space of postpartum, or perhaps more broadly for women in sport.
Yeah, look, something I was just thinking of before that, I was quite shocked around in my return from this injury. I think balance is really important, as in, being able to stand on one leg. And it's something that I had really lost and I hadn't realised until doing some exercise in my rehab. So this isn't specific to women, but perhaps women after having a baby might like to give this a go, because it's something that may have been lost as well for them, like it was for me. But standing on one leg, and I was standing with my opposite hip flexed to 90 degrees, so my knee up, and I was holding a ball and just trying to twist to the right and then to the left on that one leg and maintain my balance. So you're sort of twisting from the hip. It's a little bit hard to maybe visualize without doing it, but I was just blown away by how poor my balance was, and even doing some things simpler than that. So you might want to start with just standing on one leg and closing your eyes. So I've been really working on that over the past few weeks, and it's improved a lot. But I just think foot strength and proprioception, it's so important, and it's something that I had lost without realising throughout sort of the pregnancy, postpartum period. And I think it's a great little exercise, that one I described, for your sort of pelvic and hip control as well. So I would issue a challenge of balancing on one leg, so do it on both sides for, let's say 30 seconds. And once you can do it with your eyes open, try closing your eyes throughout that 30 seconds. And then when you're confident with that, try holding a ball and sort of taking it to one side and then to the other side whilst maintaining your balance, and see how you go.
And with that last progression there, Jess, just to clarify, the torso is upright versus bent over, is that right?
Yeah, so you're just standing upright on one leg with, as I said, I had my knee up, so my opposite hip flexed 90 degrees, and I was just, maybe I should demonstrate it and send you in a little video.
Let's pop a video up for sure.
Yeah, holding a ball out in front of me and taking it to one side and then the other side. So just doing that about six times. So you can sort of progress up to that and then try to tick off that as the final challenge.
Yeah, brilliant. So we'll call this the Jess Stenson Balance Challenge. And Jess, if you could issue one piece of advice to help listeners of the show in 2021 perform at their best, based on everything you've learned, plus obviously you're learning, both as an athlete, as a therapist, what would Jess Stenson's 2021 single piece of advice be?
I just think it's so important to break down any of your goals into little process goals. It just, for me, I've found it really helps me to keep my focus and helps me to feel like I'm having little wins along the way, to give myself little daily process goals. So it might be to achieve, 8 hours of sleep, which as a parent can be challenging, but make yourself, just go to bed that little bit earlier. It's about making sure you have a balanced meal of, quality protein and carbs within half an hour of finishing your session. It's, making sure you do your little prehab or activation exercises before a session, and you can just, picture yourself ticking off that goal and celebrate the little wins along the way. And, that can also help you to be adaptable when things perhaps don't quite go to plan, as we've all been familiar with, with some of the changes that have occurred with COVID lockdowns and cancellations. If you have to quickly rejig your goals, having these little processes to focus on each day, I think really help you to manage those periods and bring little positive, or inject little positive thoughts into each day.
So powerful. And Jess, on the theme of changes and being open-minded and bumps and, troughs along the way, we call this show the highs, lows and learnings. You publicly posted there, I believe it was early April, that your father, who you have a great relationship with, is going through his own health challenge with a sarcoma. How's your father progressing?
Yeah, so he's got, a challenging few months ahead. He's on a 7-month treatment program, and his attitude I've found so inspiring, and, he's my hero. I've just been so impressed with the way Dad, he is optimistic by nature, and he's had to be very adaptable, chemo treatment has a lot of side effects, and you think you might be going in to hospital for a certain period of time, and then things change, and he's continuing to work, and he's got his sort of goals outside of treatment, and he's just he just celebrates all of the wins along the way, which is what I was talking about earlier. And we've had so much special family time, and it's been really nice, being there for Dad this year and taking little Billy in, and he certainly puts a smile on everyone's faces. So we're working through it, but it just is certainly challenging, and I really can appreciate what others are experiencing who are going through similar journeys, to a new level now.
Gosh, and we certainly, wish yourself and the family all the best. And what a great role model, Jess. You're easily found. You're still Jess_Trengove on Instagram, and a great follow. I am curious though, is Rundies, your running undies, is there going to be a maternity range?
Oh, we really should. It's one of those things that we've got all of these grand plans for one day when things settle down a bit.
Totally.
There are so many different ranges we would love to introduce, even little kiddie ranges, little kids undies and baby wear. You could go in so many directions with it, but maternity underwear would certainly be a good one. Just something with even more support and a bit of a thicker band around the waist region, I think.
As you say though, Jess, all in good time, and nothing like adding another little family member to realise that things take a little bit longer than sometimes we'd like.
Yes, but it's all worth it.
Totally. Jess, thank you for your repeat contribution to the show and for being so open, transparent, and as always, well considered. And you are passing the baton on to fellow countrywoman and athletics star Vic Mitchell, who follows you up next week on the Physical Performance Show for her postpartum journey, which will be followed by Eloise Wellens. So we've got the trifecta of women there. So thanks for starting off the relay so strongly.
No, thank you, and thanks for providing such great content. I really look forward to every new episode, and it's got me through a lot of my cross training sessions. The guests always have so many pearls to share, and I love your podcast, so thank you.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust and I know you enjoyed Jess's sharings as always today. If you did, then please reach out, let Jess know what it was that you enjoyed from her sharings. You'll find Jess easily on Instagram at Jess_Tren, TREN. And whilst there, feel free to drop a podsy. That's simply a screenshot of the episode you've been enjoying and tagging in the show at Physical Performance Show. We'll reshare those. They are always so much fun. Now, do check out Jess's fantastic physical challenge for the week. We'll be dropping the video of the challenge on our Instagram gallery. The balance and hip rotation exercise, where Jess is challenging us to try 6 times in each direction on each leg. So give it a go. Jump over to at Physical Performance Show on Instagram to see the challenge. Now, massive thanks to today's show sponsor, Earshot's Bluetooth headphones. It is an incredible product that, as I mentioned earlier, many listeners are enjoying already. You can receive 10% off the retail price of your Earshot's headphones, retailing normally at $169.75 by simply using the coupon code TPPS at checkout. Don't forget, if you'd like to support the production of the show and receive complimentary access to all our back catalogued and upcoming live stream events, you can do so jumping over to Patreon, searching for the Physical Performance Show and supporting the show from just $5 per month. Thank you to our current patrons of the show. Your support really does make a difference. And of course, if you'd like to reach out with any injury questions, concerns, you're most welcome to drop me an email, b.beer@pogophysio.com.au. As always, a massive thank you to the great folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Walding on all things show graphic design. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we have our final instalment of this month-long Returning to Sport Postpartum series, where we will hear from both Victoria Mitchell and Jess Stenson's Australian athletics teammate, 3 times repeat guest now of the Physical Performance Show, Eloise Wellings, on her own journey on returning to sport postpartum. Eloise recently gave birth to her and Johnny's second child, young son Sonny. So just as Vic and Jess have so wonderfully shared their learnings from their return to sport, so will Eloise on next week's Physical Performance Show episode. So until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.